Guys, the new Persona Gacha game recently came out, and I thank Sega for sponsoring this video. The game is called Persona 5X, and as the name implies, its events take place in the beloved Persona 5 world. The game is available on Steam, and for the first time for the franchise on iOS and Android as well. First things first, let me just say that I played a few of the more recent Persona titles, and I have to say this game has many of the qualities as those mainline releases, just with a gacha on top. After all, this game is supposed to be an extension of Persona 5, so the base structure is of that game, but there are a couple differences. The first one is the cast of protagonists that is completely different. The main character is a high school guy whose canon name is Nagisa Kamishiro, although you can name him however you like in your save file. Along with him, several other characters will fill the main cast, like the small mascot Lufel, who kind of takes the same role of Morgana from Persona 5, but also Motoha Arai, Riko Tanemura, and more. On top of that, there are plenty of original playable characters that are called Phantom Idols. The neat thing about them is that they aren't actual real beings, but rather they're just manifestation of the protagonist of normal people in their persona form. That sounds pretty weird, I know, but they look damn cool, so I'll give them a pass. Of course, the characters from the original Persona 5 are playable as well, and assume the ones from other Persona titles will be too. That's the real exciting thing about this gacha game, the huge potential it has in terms of characters. If you ask me what's the one thing that jumps out about Persona, I would say it's the characters, how well they're characterized from a slice of life standpoint. They're entertaining, cleverly done characters that you attach to and even get to date in other Persona games. And so making them playable in a gacha game is on one hand a potential disaster of extreme proportions for your wallet, but on the other hand also a really appealing thing. In that sense, Persona 5X also has that element, being able to bond with the characters. This comes in the form of social links. Basically, a social link is a system where you get to know the characters better through many different kinds of slice of life activities, and once you reach a certain level of bonding, you will unlock useful upgrades for your account. As of right now, this only applies to the original Persona 5X characters, which makes sense. In this regard, the unique thing about Persona 5X compared to other Persona titles is that they'll keep releasing characters you can develop a social link with, and that's great because, again, the little slice of life stories that take place in these are some of the best things in Persona as a whole. Moving on, let's talk about the gameplay. Persona has always been a franchise that mixes the slice of life things I just talked about with the RPG gameplay. In my opinion, for the mainline titles, the slice of life is often more relevant and the true main part of the game, while in this one I think the gameplay shines relatively more. As far as the combat system goes, it's your typical turn-based formula, which translates perfectly to mobile devices. It's pretty simple really. Both the enemies and your characters have specific stats you have to keep in mind, and the strategy often boils down to hitting the opponents with attacks they're weak to, while buffing your team through supportive effects and keeping the lineup alive through healing. If you keep hitting the enemies with moves that make them vulnerable, you'll get extra turns, and if all of the enemies on the field have been hit like that, you'll get to hit them with an extra team-wide attack that is really powerful. It's a quite simple structure, where selecting the right lineup to counter specific enemies is the most important thing. This, in my opinion, works better in a gacha setting than in the traditional game settings in some ways, because in Persona 5X you pretty much get to model your team for each battle, while in the mainline titles you have to pick a fixed team to embark on very long dungeons and you can change them as freely. While this mysteriousness brings challenge, it can be annoying if you find opponents that can completely steamroll your lineups there, well I think this can happen less if you strategize beforehand for each fight. Moving on, in terms of leveling characters, the gacha nature of Persona 5X does remove some of the traditional RPG elements. While the main character will level up as you progress in the story and complete the quest, the other playable characters won't progress in the same way by grinding, but you'll have to level them up manually through EXP items and Ascension materials. Moreover, the personas of these characters also have a more fixed kit than in the mainline games, that will expand a couple times as you level them up, but won't learn many new spells through throughout their progression. The weapon system is more elaborated, as weapons have more impactful passive effects and can be leveled up as well to increase their stats. So it's kind of a mix between the Persona battle system and a leveling up and gear system that will be very familiar to you if you played other gacha games before. Of course, the method with which you'll obtain most of the playable characters is more leaning towards the typical gacha type, so by polling. In this sense, the game has a very common structure of standard banner and limited banner. For the standard banner, when you start off, you get a special version where each multi-poll will cost 8 tickets instead of 10, and you will be guaranteed a 5-star within 50 pulls. The featured characters here all come from Persona 5, so that's quite exciting. Then there is the limited banner, so where you'll be able to pull characters that will only be available this way for a limited amount of time. Right now, Joker, the protagonist of Persona 5, is pullable, so this is the best time to start. Again, typical structure, quite low rates for most pulls, but you're guaranteed to get a 5-star within 80 pulls. On this guarantee, you have a 50% chance to get the limited character, in this case Joker, and if you don't, the next 5-star you pull will be guaranteed to be him. Also, you'll be able to get a free standard 5-star character by completing some of the in-game missions, and if you're interested in spending money on this game, there are also deals that allow you to get some characters directly, which is nice for a gacha. On top of that, among the spending deals, you will also find the Battle Pass and the Daily Gems Pass. Nothing new, but it's nice that it has traditionally good and accessible perks for lower spenders. Among the things you will pull, there will also be normal personas, and not just the playable characters. This is because the protagonist can wield more than one persona in battle, and they can be managed in the Velvet Room, as per the norm. The nice thing is that you can fuse these personas to obtain potentially stronger ones with new abilities, and it adds a level of personalization that, while certainly not new for Persona games, is pretty unique for gachas. The personas themselves look as cool as ever in their detailed 3D designs. To be honest, I've always found the persona fusing system to be the most interesting part about the gameplay, because you just get to inhumanly mix these personas like a mad scientist and see if what comes out is any good. It adds a lot of creativity to the gameplay that I personally really enjoy. Lastly, I want to talk about the technical side of the game. In this sense, the first thing that jumps out is the music. The game has quite a few OSTs from Persona 5 and also original ones. In my opinion, the Persona franchise has some of the best music in gaming as a whole. I just love the mixes of jazz and hip-hop sounds they consistently produce, and that makes this game's audio department top-notch for the gacha genre. And on top of that, the dubbing is also great.
次は
私の力が必要かしら。私にできることは早く動きたい。
頭が硬いってよく言われちゃうんだ。
While there are no English voices, the Japanese ones are very good, as it's traditional of Persona games. Moving on, another great thing about Persona games is the aesthetic, and this game makes no exception. Each Persona title typically brings something unique to the table in that regard, and since this game takes after Persona 5, it replicates a lot of the comic book type vibes of that game that I really like. This makes even something as simple as navigating through menus a pleasure in this game, also because I haven't noticed particularly annoying loading times while doing that. In a way, I think this game gets to show off even more than the mainline Persona games, because for example, you have the character splash arts here that are really cool. The game also has plenty of 2D cutscenes to show the more dynamic parts of its story, all of which seemed quite well drawn and animated to me. The graphics are pretty much on par with the latest Persona releases, so Persona 5 and Persona 3 Reloaded. The free roam is full of life and colors. The animations for the highest level attacks is also quite well done, and since these are just initial characters, it will get better and better from here on out. So, as a whole, I think Persona 5X is a premium gacha game that proposes a highly popular franchise in a games-as-service form, and it does so very well. I think it's almost unprecedented for a big IP to do a gacha game and create something that in quite a few ways is of similar quality as the original product. To be honest, many of the games of this kind tend to just be cash grabs that are carried by the IP, but Persona 5X is completely different, and I hope other big titles go this route. So I definitely recommend you to give this game a try. As a reminder, it's currently out on Steam, iOS and Android, and you'll be able to download it by clicking on the links in the description below. Bye bye!